In the vast expanse of known space, the Galactic Council held absolute authority over 1,000 star systems. Countless civilizations bent the knee to its decrees, fearing the weight of its fleets and the reach of its law. Among the many species represented in its towering chambers, humans were regarded as little more than upstart provincials, tolerated but never respected. They were newcomers, crawling out a single, fragile cradle world, granted probationary status only because their species showed enough technological competence to avoid extermination. No one within the Council considered humanity a threat. No one, that is, until the day they made a mistake so profound it would shake the pillars of their empire. The order to detain the woman was issued casually, without debate. Reports spoke of unauthorized shipments passing through border sectors, whispers of human involvement in illicit trade, and an individual traveling under false identification codes. A single human female, without any apparent backing or title, operating alone. The case file was thin, the evidence circumstantial, but the Council needed to send a message. They decided to make an example of her. Proof to every young species that defiance carried a price. A task force of elite enforcers assembled, armed with precision weaponry and surveillance drones, confident the mission would be nothing more than a routine arrest. The outpost where they found her was unremarkable, a lonely habitat module floating in orbit over an airless moon, its life support readings stable, its communication arrays silent. Sensors detected only one life sign inside. The squad approached in formation, ships encircling the tiny station, while cybernetic infiltrators disabled its defensive grid in seconds. Docking clamps bit into the station hull, and armed officers flooded the narrow corridors. They expected resistance, fear, pleading. Yet the woman simply stood in the main chamber, hands at her sides, waiting for them. She neither ran nor spoke. Her gaze remained steady as armored figures surrounded her, weapons humming with lethal charge. When they bound her wrists, she did not resist. When they read her the formal charges, she made no sound. They took her without a struggle, and their arrogance swelled. The transport vessel carrying her back to the Council's secure holding facility reported no incidents. The prisoner was silent for the entire journey, eyes closed as if asleep. Enforcers joked about how fragile humans were, how soft-skinned and brittle-boned, creatures that barely survived their own planetary weather. They laughed as they imagined how quickly she would crack under interrogation. To them, she was nothing, less than nothing, a nuisance to be processed and forgotten. Inside the detention center, interrogation protocols began immediately. High-frequency scanners probe her body for hidden augments, finding nothing. Neural pattern analysis revealed no abnormalities, at least none the machines could identify. When questioned, she gave curt, indifferent answers, or no answers at all. The interrogators tried intimidation, cycling through psychological tactics known to break dozens of species, yet her expression never changed. She neither pleaded nor defied. She simply endured. One officer described the sensation of questioning her as speaking into an empty void. It was unsettling, though no one admitted it openly. Meanwhile, analysts combed through galactic databases to verify her identity. Her records were clean, too clean. No history beyond the past few years, no origin trail leading back to Earth or any human colony. There were faint traces, mismatched fragments of old military documents, all redacted or corrupted beyond use. Someone had erased her past deliberately and thoroughly. Investigators flagged this anomaly, but superiors dismissed it. What could a single human woman possibly be hiding that mattered to the mighty Council? The first signs of trouble came quietly. Security systems around her cell began to malfunction. Surveillance drones lost power, without explanation. Doors sealed shut or opened randomly, forcing technicians to perform manual overrides. At first, it seemed like nothing more than aging infrastructure. But these failures occurred only in the sectors surrounding her holding area. Maintenance crews replaced the wiring, recalibrated sensors, even swapped out the power cores. Yet the glitches persisted. She never moved from her seat. Yet everything around her slowly unraveled. Whispers spread among lower-ranking personnel. Some guards swore they heard faint hums in the walls, as if the building itself was alive and breathing. Others claimed they saw shadows where no light source should have cast them. The command staff dismissed these as superstition, the nonsense of undisciplined minds. They doubled the guard, activated redundant security measures, and continued the investigation. Confident technology would solve the puzzle. A mid-level intelligence officer finally voiced concerns to the council. He presented fragmented data showing that the prisoner's biometric readings did not match any known civilian profile. Her DNA exhibited unusual markers, hints of experimental augmentation or selective breeding programs. He requested authorization to perform deep genomic sequencing. His request was denied. The council considered it a waste of time and resources. During the next interrogation, she spoke for the first time in more than a sentence. When asked to name her accomplices, she tilted her head slightly and said, "You don't have enough prisons to hold them all." The interrogator froze, unsure how to respond. When pressed, she simply smiled, a small, calm, terrifying smile, and fell silent again. The recording of that session was reviewed repeatedly. Several officers admitted they felt an inexplicable sense of unease while watching it, as though the prisoner wasn't the one being questioned. They were. The council convened to discuss her lack of cooperation. Some argued to transfer her to an off-world facility. Others suggested placing her in stasis until Earth authorities could claim her. The majority, however, chose to proceed with harsher measures. They believed she was just another smuggler, perhaps with advanced human training, nothing more. Their arrogance blinded them. As the days passed, anomalies worsened. Power grids failed briefly at random intervals, plunging entire detention wings into darkness. Data cores holding sensitive intelligence were corrupted, with entire sectors of memory wiped clean. Security personnel reported strange dreams, recurring visions of cities burning under alien skies, fleets turning against themselves, and a human figure walking alone through the wreckage. Each time the alarms blared, the prisoner remained perfectly still in her cell, eyes closed, lips curved in a faint smile. The council grew impatient. Their analysts were ordered to tear apart every record on human military operations, but what they found was disturbing. Decades-old archives referenced covert campaigns waged in distant star systems, operations with no official author, orchestrated by an unknown strategist. Fleets had vanished without explanation. Empires had collapsed from within. And always, buried in the classified files, there was a single codename mentioned only in whispers: the Architect. The council's unease deepened, though few would admit it aloud. What had begun as a simple arrest was now a matter whispered in shadowed corridors, concealed from official records. Teams of analysts tore through every fragment of data on covert human operations, assembling a mosaic of suppressed history that most wished they had never seen. The woman in their custody had no birth records, no verifiable origin, no trace of family or friends. Cross-checks against Deep Black Project hinted at something older than the human expansion into space, a shadow operative rumored to have orchestrated collapses of entire governments without firing a shot. The old name surfaced again and again: the Architect, once dismissed as a phantom, now linked to every anomaly surrounding her. Inside the detention complex, the air grew heavier. Guards stopped making jokes. Officers no longer volunteered for interrogations. The malfunctions that once seemed random now formed a pattern. Cameras blinked out not in isolation but in perfect sequences, opening unseen corridors of darkness at precise intervals. Firewalls built to withstand planetary sieges fell in seconds without any known breach. Engineers swore it was impossible. No signal penetrated the facility. No device was detected on her person, yet systems behaved as if answering silent commands. Desperation drove the council to escalate their efforts. A high-ranking security minister authorized full-spectrum neural scans. Dozens of alien specialists crowded the observation decks, confident their technology could penetrate any mind. The scanners activated, surrounding her with a shimmering lattice of light, mapping every neuron and synapse. But instead of yielding data, the machines overloaded, displaying impossible readings, patterns not matching any known species, human or otherwise. The equipment burned out completely, leaving nothing but static and smoke. The technicians blamed power surges, though everyone present felt the truth. The prisoner had looked directly at the scanning array just before it failed. The interrogations grew hostile. Senior counselors themselves entered the cell, demanding answers with threats and ultimatums. She listened calmly as they listed the charges: smuggling, espionage, destabilization of allied regimes. When they accused her of being the architect, she tilted her head slightly and said nothing. When they ordered her to reveal her network, she smiled faintly, as if amused by their assumptions. Some claimed to feel the temperature drop in the room during that session, though environmental controls showed no fluctuation. Outside the cell, unrest spread through the detention staff. Several officers resigned without explanation. A communications officer went missing on his way to work. His shuttle found adrift with no sign of life. Another was discovered unconscious, repeating a single phrase in a language no one recognized. Those who remained on duty spoke in hushed tones, avoiding eye contact with each other, glancing often at the sealed door of her cell as though expected to open on its own. Intelligence networks scoured deeper into classified archives, piecing together the legend. The architect had appeared sporadically over the past century, each time coinciding with sudden shifts in galactic power. Fleets belonging to rival empires mysteriously failed at critical moments. Economies collapsed under inexplicable market sabotage. Leaders who opposed human interests met untimely ends, their replacements unexpectedly favorable to Earth. No one ever caught the culprit. No one even confirmed the figure existed. But a strategic footprint was undeniable. Now, every fragment of that history pointed to the silent woman they had bound and caged. The council grew divided. Some argued to release her quietly, return her to human authorities, and pretend the arrest never happened. Others demanded her immediate execution, fearing what she might do if allowed to live. But execution was not so simple. The facility's weapons systems refused to authorize lethal protocols within her cell. Targeting subroutines scrambled themselves whenever an order to terminate her was entered. Even manual overrides failed, mechanical safeties jammed, power conduits fused. It was as if the entire prison infrastructure had chosen to disobey. During one midnight cycle, alarms screamed across the complex. Every door unsealed at once, every camera turned static. Automated turrets pivoted inward on their operators. A dozen guards vanished without a trace, their biosignatures erased in the logs as though they had never existed. Through it all, she remained seated, serene and motionless. When emergency lighting restored partial visibility, she was still in the same position, but the locks on her restraints were open, lying neatly on the floor. The council dispatched an elite security fleet to surround the detention facility, ensuring she could not escape. Warships formed an impenetrable cordon, weapons armed and primed. Yet, as they prepared to storm the cell with overwhelming force, their navigation arrays began to fail one by one. Ships reported false sensor echoes, sudden power drops, and catastrophic guidance errors. 2 vessels collided without warning, both crews perishing instantly. No hostile fire had been exchanged, yet the fleet was crippled in under an hour. Commanders frantically ordered retreats, leaving only minimal defenses around facility. On the surface, the council continued to deny anything was wrong. In private, fear spread like wildfire. They summoned special tribunals, seeking to accelerate her trial, but no legal process could keep pace with the chaos unfolding. Entire sectors loyal to the council began experiencing strange disruptions, communications blackouts, trade routes paralyzed by falsified star maps, automated factories producing defective war material. Rival factions, long suppressed by council authority, suddenly found themselves armed with insider intelligence, toppling regional governors one after another. Amid the turmoil, a group of analysts finally presented irrefutable evidence. The woman in custody had orchestrated events decades earlier, manipulating political tides to secure humanity's rise while appearing to vanish entirely. The architect was no myth. She had been real all along, a strategist who waged silent wars, never through brute force, but through precision, sabotage, and psychological mastery. And now she was in their prison, studying them as one might study an insect in a jar. The next blackout came without warning, plunging the entire facility into total darkness for 12 minutes. When power returned, her cell door was wide open. Every security feed displayed only static. The guards assigned to her wing were never found. No alarms triggered as she walked calmly out of the detention block, past silent turrets and inactive drones, through sealed checkpoints that opened as she approached. Witnesses outside the compound later swore they saw her boarding no ship, yet the sensors recorded no trace of her presence after that moment. By dawn, the detention facility's mainframe had been completely wiped, every record of her imprisonment erased, every command log corrupted beyond recovery. Council investigators struggled to piece together what had happened, but their systems were in disarray. Emergency meetings convened in secret chambers, but even there they were not safe. Their encrypted communications leaked to hostile powers. Entire fleets found themselves ambushed at coordinates they thought were hidden.